The race for Maryland governor is starting to take shape more than a year before Election Day 2026.
Why did you decide to run for governor?
I'm sitting down with candidates on both sides of the aisle.
You can't have a deficit like we had.
First off, fiscal responsibility and accountability.
Going in depth on their campaigns and getting the answers that matter most to voters. Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Fox 45 News In Depth. I'm Mikenzie Frost. The midterm elections are in November 2026, less than a year and a half away. Here in Maryland, the race for governor is already shaping up. Several Republican candidates have decided they're expressing interest to run for the governor's office. We'll take a closer look at some of their campaigns in just a few minutes. Governor Wes Moore will take a run for a second term, but he will not go unchallenged. Baltimore businessman Ed Hale will run against him in the Democratic primary. I sat down with Hale to talk about his message for Marylanders. Ed Hale isn't new to the Maryland landscape.
My story is pretty simple. You know, I was born in Highlandtown, moved to Dundalk. I worked at Bethlehem Steel. I worked as an iron worker. I went to college and never finished college. I wasn't a good student, but I didn't fall off the turnip truck either. So I learned by doing.
He built his business from the ground up and later won a banking proxy war that made headlines.
But I never, ever was a banker, never. And then one day I was a banker. I won the fight.
He's not really new to the political world.
I've been a bundler and a fundraiser.
But he is new to being a candidate himself, and he's ready for that to change.
Why did you decide to run for governor?
I just thought about it. Why get out of here when things are really, we got our bond rating was dropped from AAA to AA1. That was a big no-no. The lack of people getting jobs here. The lack of accountability, in my estimation, that you got to keep the budget balanced. And, just watching that when the previous governor gives a surplus and now there's a deficit, big problem. I've been a politician for like 3 months, but I've been a businessman for 78 years. So now, I think is the time.
With deep roots in the Baltimore area, steeped in business and now blasting his way into new ventures, Hale says he's looking to bring his business and unique government background.
One of my favorite ever politicians is Senator Barbara Mikulski. She was my contact at the Senate Intelligence Committee when I was in the CIA.
To the People's House of Maryland. Hale says his biggest priority is Maryland's finances and getting the budget on track.
You can't have a deficit like we have, a budget in the state of Maryland, which is $61 billion, and we're underwater $3 billion. To me, that's a 5%. You have to make a 5% cut. That's what I would do. I'm unafraid to go in there and take a look at that.
Helping Baltimore keep homicides and non-fatal shootings going down is also something he says is important to the entire state, but also working with communities to build up law enforcement ranks.
What I would do is make sure that the police are taken care of and we help them. We don't defund the police, we fund the police. As a matter of fact, give them retention bonuses to stay, because those people, men and women, know where the alleys, streets, and the streets are, the shortcuts to get places, and they know the people, the bad actors.
Outside of crime, public safety, and the budget, what other ideas or what other major policy issues are you looking at bringing to the table in your campaign to the state in this race?
Well, job creation is something I've done all my life. I have an absolute record of it. It's irrefutable that I've done it all my life, and that would be number one. Public safety. Straightening out the budget is going to be very important.
While he's running as a Democrat, Hale is ready to pick fights with his own party if necessary, especially when it comes to chipping away at the blueprint for Maryland's future. Simply put, Hale says many jurisdictions don't have the money to foot the bill.
No, they don't.
And he's a backer of school vouchers.
Why do they not want to allow that? I mean, if you're spending all this money that you don't have, what's the point? We hope to attend or to achieve if you have $20,000 given to somebody that really can't read and write when they get out of school. For the life of me, that's inexplicable.
Keeping the focus on Maryland is another priority. something he says is not the case for his opponent.
That he's running for president, period.
Ed Hale, Baltimore businessman, veteran, former CIA officer, banker, and now,
If nothing else, this is going to be interesting.
Candidate for governor. We invited Governor Moore for an interview. He did not respond to that request. Over the past 3 years, Democrats have praised Moore for his achievements, while Republicans remain skeptical about how he's addressing issues in Maryland. Let's take a look back at some of his biggest issues he's faced in his first term so far. During the last legislative session, Governor Moore faced a $3 billion budget deficit. At the beginning of session, he promised he would not increase taxes on Maryland's working class. But the final version of the budget that passed ended up including $1.6 billion in new taxes and fees, including a controversial 3% tech tax. I pressed him on that issue. Is it really fair to say that 94% of people will see no change or a tax break in their income taxes when they will have to be paying these other taxes and fees?
I think it's absolutely fair, because I think it's the numbers. I think, especially when you consider what's happening on the federal level, the fact that this state can say the governor's making sure that he's holding firm on his promise of getting the middle class a tax cut, I think people can, and people do feel thankful for that.
People will still see the headlines with $1.6 billion in tax increases, though. Do you think that they really will be thankful for a government who is taxing them more, given the fact that we are seeing all of the other federal actions?
I think you are watching a state government that is giving the middle class a tax cut in this moment. I think you are going to watch a state government that's about to do the largest amount of cuts to a Maryland state budget that we have seen literally in over a generation.
Lawmakers across the state are also speaking out against the Maryland Piedmont Reliability Project, and many landowners are turning to Governor Moore for a solution. The governor has pushed back against the project, saying he wants to stand with Marylanders and does not see why the transmission line is necessary.
There are real flaws and real problems with this, and I have said long before that not only do I have a very real issue with this project and how it was maintained, I don't see how, if there are not changes to this, how this thing moves forward. So I saw the judge's ruling, but the judge's ruling does not change my opinion on it. I think this thing has very real problems.
But some critics of the transmission line worry the governor is not doing enough to find a solution. Joanne Frederick from Stop MPRP, a grassroots organization helping landowners fight the transmission line, joined us for a town hall to talk about the project. She said she has been asking for a meeting with the governor for months, but he has yet to meet with her or her group. However, she did meet with the governor's team, who indicated he approves of the PSC's process.
So the governor's office is certainly supporting the process that the state will conduct. And the governor, through his team, said that he is open to any and all of the above solutions to solve Maryland's energy challenges.
What does that mean?
Well, optimistically, it means that we can increase generation, as needs to be done in the state of Maryland, to avoid the need for transmission. You know, pessimistically, it could mean additional interregional transmission solutions and more lines running across Maryland.
In March 2024, Governor Moore oversaw the recovery effort in the aftermath of the Key Bridge collapse. At the time of the collapse and in the weeks following, the governor led the charge, giving regular updates. The debris from the collapse was cleaned up and the Port of Baltimore reopened ahead of schedule. The governor also worked with lawmakers in Washington to secure nearly $2 billion in federal funding for the bridge's reconstruction.
We're not going to need a plan B. The objective and the goal and what we will accomplish is we will get to the 100% cost share that we'll have this year. If we can get to all the guarantees that we need, we are going to be able to get the Key Bridge rebuilt faster than anyone thought possible when the tragic and deadly collapse first happened. So we don't need a plan B. Plan A will work.
1 year after the collapse, the NTSB released findings from its investigation showing the Maryland Transportation Authority failed to conduct a vulnerability assessment of the bridge. On national media, Governor Moore shifted the blame away from the state, taking no responsibility for the collapse.
It was the sole fault of the dolly and the sole fault of the reckless operators. If you look at the Key Bridge has passed every single federal assessment
for literally over 30 years. And so the Federal Highway Administration and the federal government had claimed and continue to state that the Key Bridge was not the issue. The issue, and I was speaking with the former Transportation Secretary about it, the issue was that we had a ship the size of 3 football fields. That when you have a ship at that size, moving at that speed, and what he told me was there wasn't a bridge in the country that could have taken that impact. And so when you look at the reckless behavior of the dolly, that's the sole reason for it.
As the state faced major issues like these, Governor Moore was also criticized for where his priorities seemed to lie. He appeared on national news shows 3 weekends in a row during the past legislative session. The appearances and his growing prevalence in the Democratic Party led to questions about whether he's planning to shift focus to a presidential run.
Are you ruling out a 2028 run for president?
I am not focused on anything except for making sure that this is Maryland's decade.
A number of Republicans have thrown their hats into the ring to take on whoever wins the Democratic primary for governor. I spoke with 3 of those candidates. Near Westminster, Maryland, a farmer and his animals call this property home.
I wish everybody could live like this.
But Kurt Wiedekin is looking to shake things up, and not just on his farm.
Why did you decide to run for governor?
I have no political, that wasn't my thing, right? So the way that things are going now, it just doesn't make any sense to me. It would be really good if somebody would do something, and I just figured, if not me, who?
He's been self-employed for more than 30 years, small business owner, and now looking to tack governor to his list of titles.
It would be nice to put some common sense business practices back into the state. That's pretty much it.
Annapolis isn't his favorite place in Maryland, but he says he's ready to work on Maryland's budget and make the old line state a little more affordable for everyone.
In addition to a tax problem, but I think if we can help get the spending under control, the taxes will follow.
What are some of the biggest areas that you think spending is out of control?
I think it's everywhere. I think we're paying a lot for things that aren't necessary. I think somebody has to say no. Like, you just have to say no. You can't keep spending money that you don't have.
How do you attract more people to the state?
I don't know, but it would be great to have somebody that goes out and tries to attract businesses and stuff to the state. I think that job creation is big, but I don't know that job creation through the government is the only way to do it.
The Republican field is filled with other candidates beyond a Maryland farmer.
I am coming to the table as a candidate for governor who started out as a welder.
Christopher Boucher is a state delegate from Carroll and Frederick counties.
I've been in business 31 years, and over the course of 31 years, I've consistently watched my customers and clients flee the state because it's anti-business and it's taxation.
Boucher is pitching voters a flat tax.
What I call a 3-3-3 policy, where you tax 3% on a flat rate wage, salary, income. You tax 3% in consumption sales tax. The state excise tax is 6%. We can cut that in half. And the third of the 3s is the capital gains tax.
He supports changing how political districts are drawn in the state, an issue he's passionate about and one he's ready to talk to voters about on the campaign trail.
And if we can bring about the reform and put the people in charge of drawing the districts, the composition of the General Assembly would be closer to 50-50 on election cycles, as it should be. We wouldn't wind up these ridiculous policies raising our taxes so high and increasing the cost of our energy bills. All these things are self-inflicted upon the citizens of Maryland to reward the special interest groups that are buying off our politicians.
Do you believe that you would be able to accomplish the goal of changing how the districts are drawn as governor?
If I can capture the power of the people, the most powerful force in the state is the people. If I can capture and represent that through my leadership ability and my voice and articulating the message, I will be the most powerful politician in the state of Maryland, representing the citizens of Maryland to bring about the reform.
And John Myrick, a former Harford County Sheriff's deputy and member of the U.S. Retired Air Force Reserves before he retired.
As a lifelong public servant and someone whose family has been here in Maryland since 1640.
He's another Republican candidate looking for support.
I could not sit back on the sidelines and do nothing and watch the current governor continue to destroy our state.
His attack on incumbent Governor Wes Moore is more pointed.
It's clear that this governor has never intended or wanted to govern this state. He has always had his eyes set on a bigger prize.
Like most of the other candidates on either side of the political aisle, Myrick takes issue with the current state of Maryland's finances.
His fiscal policies are absolutely abysmal.
So how would you solve some of those biggest problems if you were to be elected?
When these people in Annapolis run out of cash, they simply reach deeper into Marylanders' pockets. I want to know, and as a taxpayer, I think we deserve to know where every dime of our money is going.
Education is an important issue for Myrick, and he wants to change the blueprint, the state's multi-billion-dollar education spending plan mandated by lawmakers.
I will work with the legislature to repeal the blueprint and to build a public school system that makes sense, which is one of the reasons that for a lieutenant governor running mate, I chose a school teacher.
Kurt Wiedekin, Christopher Boucher, John Myrick, 3 Republican candidates gearing up to run against Governor Wes Moore. But someone will have to make it out of the GOP primary first to do so. All eyes are on former Governor Larry Hogan now, wondering if he will enter the race to take back his old office, where he stands now, plus experts weigh in on the election.
Yeah, I did.
One Republican who could still throw his hat in the ring is former Governor Larry Hogan. Under Maryland law, a governor can only serve 2 consecutive terms, but can run again after a 4-year break. Larry Hogan ran for Senate last year and lost to Democrat Angela Alsobrooks, but he was widely popular as governor. He was the first Republican governor to serve 2 terms since 1954 and left office with a 77% approval rating. Earlier this year, a Gonzalez poll showed if Larry Hogan and Wes Moore went head-to-head in a gubernatorial race, 52% of voters would choose Moore, 38% would choose Hogan, 10% were undecided.
For a Republican to win in Maryland, mathematically, there's only one way that can happen, and that is for that Republican to get about a third of the Democrats. And Governor Hogan in this poll, and I think probably in the recent election, got about half of what was necessary.
Earlier this month, I asked the former governor following a panel discussion in Washington, D.C. I questioned him about his future plans directly. Sounded like you were laying the groundwork for maybe what's next.
I saw a little smirk when she offered, like if you were governor.
You say governors can't, they got to do more than make speeches. Is that a slight?
I'm enjoying retirement and talking about bipartisanship.
And then what?
That's keeping me pretty happy right now, spending time with the family and grandkids, doing a little business.
All right, joining me now, political analyst John Dede with the Community College of Baltimore County and Roger Hartley with the University of Baltimore. I appreciate both of your times. Now, let's start with John Dede there. I want to ask you, John, I don't know if you heard there and you were able to see Larry Hogan kind of dodge the question physically. He kind of was trying to dodge my questions and he did not really answer the question. What would his getting into the race for governor, if he were to enter the Republican primary, what would that do to the race for governor overall if he decided to get in?
It would shake it up a lot, and at the same time, it would draw more national media attention to it. Those other three gentlemen you interviewed, all probably very nice people, but no one knows who they are, and they're not going to raise enough money. Hogan getting in the race is going to bring a lot of money into the state of Maryland, a lot of advertising to the state, and a lot of money from Republican groups that would like a feather in their hat by basically knocking more off.
Roger, what do you think that would do about, not only the Republican primary? I mean, at this point, do you think that if Larry Hogan were to jump in, he would take the primary race? Unless, what if we saw somebody like a Dan Cox jump in? How would that change the primary race if Larry Hogan were to get in as well?
If Larry Hogan were to get in, I mean, first of all, I agree with you, John. I think he's probably the only credible candidate that could have a chance of beating Moore right now. If Dan Cox got in, it would only serve to help former Governor Hogan, and by mainly giving him a race and an opportunity to get his name recognition up even more versus a primary that would be kind of dead. I don't think he would have any problem against Dan Cox. The big issue is what we just saw in the Gonzalez poll, being able to take as many Democrats as he would need to be able to take and as many independents to craft enough to win at a time when Democrats are really fired up about the national issues that are facing the state.
We know how Larry Hogan feels about President Donald Trump. He was never shy about making his opinion clear in the previous administration. John, how do you think that will play given the national conversation about Donald Trump and Democrats in the state of Maryland? Do you think Democrats in Maryland would they be more willing to vote for Larry Hogan over Wes Moore, knowing how he feels about the president?
I was talking with Boyd Rutherford, the former lieutenant governor, a few months ago, and he told me that in 2018, when Hogan ran for re-election, when people didn't like Trump, people came up to him and said, "You're the only people we're voting for that are Republicans. We're voting Democrat the rest of the way through." I could see Hogan running a Trump campaign in this style. When Trump ran for re-election in 2024, he basically ran on the theme, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" I think that would be the message he would go, because he would say, when I was governor, we didn't increase taxes all the time. When I was governor, things were better. And elections are about how voters feel. Statistics don't mean diddly. You can show someone the statistics say inflation's down 5%. If they don't feel it's down 5%, then it's not down 5%. I think Hogan could tap to the past, just like Reagan said, "Are you better off now than 4 years ago?" And I think that would be an effective message.
We're seeing him kind of do that already on social media. That's definitely the messaging that the former governor is using on his pages right now. Roger, looking at the current governor, Wes Moore, and the taxes and fees, Republicans really hammered him during this last legislative session with the budget. Do you think that is going to be a major problem for him going into this next campaign?
I don't think that the taxes are going to be a major problem. That resonates with a portion of the electorate that's predominantly Republican. I think if anything could possibly hurt Governor Moore, it would be the budget itself, and it's the spending part of the budget that's the bigger issue. Did he make parts of his base a little tepid with having to make difficult cuts that leaders have to make during times of budget problems? So I think that's the bigger problem for him. The other thing is the electorate is a little bit different in off-year elections, right? I mean, you have a giant sea of Democrat voters in Maryland that are going to overwhelm anyone in a presidential race. The way, Governor Hogan was able to win was he faced a smaller electorate where Republicans and independents could show up and do a little bit more damage to a Democrat at that time.
That's interesting, yeah. All right, well, Roger Hartley and John Deedy, I appreciate both of your time and your insight. Luckily, we have a year and a half to keep having this conversation and watch this race as it develops. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
This week, we asked what issues will be most important to you when it comes time for the race for Maryland's governor. We'll take a look at your responses after the break. This week we asked what issues will matter most to you when it comes time for the race for Maryland's governor. Let's take a look at what some of you had to say. Darlene said taxes and fees will matter most to her. Kevin said crime in Baltimore. Debbie says tax cuts. Look out for Marylanders. James, someone who can take responsibility and balance the budget. All right, that's it for this week's edition of Fox 45 News in Depth. I'm Mikenzie Frost. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.